Hi, I'm Jeff Neal. The subject of our study today is faith. If you could have more faith, would you refuse it? I think we all would gladly accept as much faith as God would give us, wouldn't we? Well, let's turn to Luke 13, verses 1 to 8. Make that Luke 18, verses 1 to 8. And he spoke a parable to them to this end, that men ought always to pray, and not to faint, saying, There was in a city a judge which feared not God, neither regarded man. And there was a widow in that city, and she came to him, saying, Avenge me of mine adversary. And he would not for a while, but afterward he said within himself, Though I fear not God, nor regard man, yet because this widow troubles me, I will avenge her, lest by her continual coming she weary me. And the Lord said, Hear what the unjust judge says. And shall not God avenge his own elect, which cry day and night to him, though he bear long with them? I tell you that he will avenge them speedily. Nevertheless, when the Son of Man comes, shall he find faith on the earth? Will Christ find faith on the earth when he comes? Probably very little. How then can we build real faith and be among the ones that when he comes, he will find with faith? Right now we all have some measure of faith. We can accomplish some small things with our little faith. But when it comes to big things, that may be another story altogether. Well, let's think about this. It's interesting. Two boys can be born into the same family, just about a year apart. One may be naturally physically stronger than the other boy, born with that greater gift or measure of strength than the other boy. Yet the weaker one can exercise and eventually can become even bigger and stronger than his brother. Christ was spiritually like a huge, strong muscle man, like a Schwarzenegger. He was able to lift huge spiritual weights, weights that none of us could even hope to budge. But you know what? Christ worked out regularly. He worked out spiritually every day. Just as a person can increase their physical strength by exercising regularly, so too can we increase our spiritual strength, that is our faith, by exercising spiritually regularly. But just how do we do that? Well, let's turn to some scriptures and let God tell us how. John 15, verse 7. Christ said, If you abide in me, and my words abide in you, you shall ask what you will, and it shall be done to you. John 15:10. He continues, If you keep my commandments, you shall abide in my love, even as I have kept my Father's commandments, and abide in his love. John 15:12. This is my commandment, that you love one another, as I have loved you. John 15:17. These things I command you, that you love one another. Friends, if we don't start really loving one another, we'll just continue to limp along, getting a few little prayers answered here and there. But if we want to have real faith, we've got to really love one another. It's easy to talk the talk, but another thing to walk the walk. Let's look at 1 John 3:11-24. The Apostle John writes, For this is the message that you heard from the beginning, that we should love one another, not as Cain, who was of that wicked one, and slew his brother. And wherefore slew he him? Because his own works were evil, and his brother's righteous. Marvel not, my brethren, if the world hate you. We know that we have passed from death to life, because we love the brethren. He that loves not his brother abides in death. Whosoever hates his brother is a murderer. And you know that no murderer has eternal life abiding in him. Hereby perceive we the love of God, because he laid down his life for us, and we ought to lay down our lives for the brethren. But whoso has this world's good, and sees his brother have need, and shuts up his bowels of compassion from him, how dwells the love of God in him? My little children, let us not love in word, neither in tongue, but in deed and in truth. And hereby we know that we are of the truth, and shall assure our hearts before him. For if our heart condemn us, God is greater than our heart, and knows all things. Beloved, if our heart condemn us not, then have we confidence toward God. And whatsoever we ask, we receive of him, because we keep his commandments, and do those things that are pleasing in his sight. And this is his commandment. Listen, that we should believe on the name of his Son, Jesus Christ, and love one another, as he gave us commandment. And he that keeps his commandments dwells in him, and he in him. And hereby we know that he abides in us, by the Spirit which he has given us. You know, so many people these days, Christians in the world, they say that, the commandments were nailed to the cross. They're done away. But God said, he that keeps his commandments abides in him. Now let's turn to 1 John 4, verse 12. No man has seen God at any time. If we love one another, God dwells in us, and his love is perfected in us. Do you suffer from fears of any kind? Do you fear flying, going to the dentist or a doctor? How about elevators? Do you fear elevators? What do you fear? Well, here's what God says about fear. Verse 18 of 2 John, or rather 1 John chapter 4. There is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear, because fear has torment. He that fears is not made perfect in love. One day the disciples asked Christ to increase their faith. Let's read what he said to them. Luke 17, verses 6 to 10. And the Lord said, if you had faith as a grain of mustard seed, you might say to this sycamore tree, be you plucked up by the root, and be you planted in the sea, and it should obey you. But which of you, having a servant plowing or feeding cattle, will say to him by and by when he has come from the field, go and sit down to meat? And will not rather say to him, make ready wherewithal I may sup, and gird yourself and serve me, till I have eaten and drunken, and afterward you shall eat and drink? Does he thank that servant because he did the things that were commanded him? I think not. So likewise you, when you shall have done all these things which are commanded you, say, we are unprofitable servants. We have done that which was our duty to do. Do you get the point? In answer to the disciples' request to increase their faith, Christ told them a story showing that our faith is increased when we go beyond what we are supposed to be doing, when we give love by serving others. Finally, friends, the Apostle Paul emphasizes how faith works in Galatians 5, verse 6. He says, for in Jesus Christ neither circumcision avails anything, nor uncircumcision, but faith, which works by love. Faith works by love. What happens when we receive a phone call to go and help someone? Well, often our carnal nature immediately chips in, and we try to think of a good reason or two why we can't do that right now. Isn't that right? Friends, it is only by exercising our faith muscles, by working out with love daily, that our faith will grow. So let us practice giving love every day. Serve others beyond our duty. Jump at opportunities to serve others, and our faith will grow in leaps and bounds. Join us right here next week for another study. I'm Jeff Neal.